5 years ago, I began a YouTube channel devoted to my then upcoming fan film reboot of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy for a then release in 2014 under my most known account name PR Lost Galaxy 2014. 2012 was very, but if not long ago at the time of this particular video's creation. It was during a time when I was very much struggling to make ends meet, to be recognized within the Power Rangers community online through plenty of social media outlets, Ranger Wiki notwithstanding until 2012, and the online forum Ranger Board back in the time when Power Rangers was coming back to our televisions with Samurai, and with Power Rangers head on to this point being on Nickelodeon. As of this video, I have came to the point where I decided to script and re-record all old audio to each of my older videos, where I would substitute what I originally said in those videos initially that I have posted, except for the videos where I've done some begging back when I was lacking very much social communication after 2011, and I decided, since my Nickelodeon Sucks video of the Terra Venture podcast, and when I signed up and joined Patreon 3 months around the Christmas break. With this particular set of videos, before I rewrote and recorded this, I looked back on all the dreck I stated that caused some impersonal ludicrousy of particular public figures in my real life that were alarmed by the things I was saying, including the things I was talking so much bullcrap online and still was about my time as a senior in high school, obsessively following what and whatever and so on. As for this set of re-released, re-edited, and re-recorded content on PR Lost Galaxy 2014 for the last 4.5 years, after looking back on my most notoriously known content such as the Terra Venture podcast, PR Lost Galaxy 2014 toy reviews, etc., I have since then decided to redo every video since, well, in order for me to get some sense of better recognition on YouTube, I am going to redo each and every one of these videos for new viewers who haven't subscribed to my channel when it started, and when I was announcing that I was making fan films based on about most of one of the fans' favorite Power Ranger seasons. In this case, that being Lost Galaxy, the season that began the post-Zordon era 18 years ago. Looking back on this video, a lot of things have completely changed over the last 5 years being on here. I know many of you love hearing me ramble on about making a fan film this and wanting a villain from my favorite season to be in it that. It's time that I started being a bit more productive on this stuff and rather stop the constant bitching, whining, and complaining about it. That's where the detraction from anyone who randomly finds any of my videos come in and unsubscribe and leave. I'm glad I've made it this far to make this many videos, however, but I think it's time I put that constant bitching and begging to a stop. When I also began the channel in 2012, my first 5 or 6 videos were re-uploads from my original YouTube channel, Anthony Marsh 1, which was active this month 6 years ago in 2011. Until the end of 2014 due to, in 2012, in October 2012, when I had a very unprecedented copyright strike I received from Cartoon Network and Adult Swim at one point out of random, when I uploaded a bit from a season 1 episode of the then at the time Black Dynamite animated series on Adult Swim, the same time I started here. Whereas this video was one of them. Enter a piece of content for the fan film that I once created known as Morphin Grid Case Study Archives. In this set of videos, which were featurettes for my first Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film when I was starting out on YouTube in 2012, where I really wanted to take off, but didn't have much of an audience. When I started on YouTube, of course, I've had very much of a small audience, and look, here I am 5 years later on this channel, and look how far I've came. In this set of videos, I have done overviews of characters from the source material, except my set of characters, that being Rangers from the film universe I established, and not the ones from actual Power Rangers canon from from Lost Galaxy, most of them being the villains. Whereas the character models, as you knew them, and still at this point, that I created even to this day are paper puppets, or in a major term, paper dolls. And I know for those who don't like paper dolls, this was no other opportunity. I had to do it in a different medium that was never done before, because due to the fact I've been doing everything by myself for the most part. I've only done one for the characters that I had some intentions to be in the film, from Trakeena to the Pink Ranger. However, for those who don't know, Trakeena inevitably ended up being the one character from the source material that didn't make it into the first film because, well, in the original videos of this, I kept going on and on and on and on about someone that I once had at a past point to do her voice role for the character, but later vehemently refused and quit. And thus, this is why I haven't had Trakeena on screen in the first film and had the character on hiatus until recently, late bin 2015, and when I recently intended on reviving the once dead and abandoned Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Rise of Trakeena fan film, which at the time of this redux of this video later now entitled Power Rangers Lost Galaxy The Wrath of Trakeena as of 2017, whose fan film I currently have intentions to have out in time for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy's 20th anniversary 2 years away from now. But right now, let's go ahead on what I had that was my very first Morphin Grid case study archive. Everyone knows at this point Trakeena is one of my favorite villains from Power Rangers, and she did originate from Power Rangers Lost Galaxy, a season of Power Rangers in which I'm doing movies on. Mind you, for the longest time in this decade of the 2010s, and it's taken me now 7 years to get to the damn point to bring her to the screen in these fan films because shut up. I understand the reason why I did so was because I was at the time afraid that fans wouldn't like seeing me replace the face of the actress who we all know in the fandom played her in the TV show, that being Amy Miller. Amy Roll, considering she married Reggie Roll, the actor who played the season's Green Ranger Damon Henderson after Lost Galaxy concluded production back in 1999. Them being married is none of my business. And in favor of the likenesses of some actresses or other female paraphernalia, if they were to be the character, if a Power Rangers Lost Galaxy reboot movie by Saban was to be made and not something that I'm doing like this. I know it's been a stretch of a struggle, but suppose so. At this point, think now with Elizabeth Banks as Rita Repulsa in the new Power Rangers movie reboot by Lionsgate and Saban. People have already, even before this video and way long before this video, have already started making comparisons and reminders of Trakeena than the old Rita or even Divatox with Elizabeth Banks' Rita. Especially Trakeena since, well, she was the first female villain in the franchise to have green armor and a green mutant form at the end of her unredeemable tenure as a villain. But this whole new Rita look like Trakeena stuff is really starting to bug me. Actually, take that back. That's been bugging me. Anyway, Trakeena. She was originally going to be in my first official fan film of Power Rangers Lost Galaxy set for a 2014 release, but I had, like I said earlier, cut her from the film because, well, because. Before I go ahead and start giving out details for new viewers seeing my older videos for the first time, what I initially planned for the first reboot movie of mine for the character, I had since my final year in high school at the time when I originally posted the original video in October 2012, but way after 2011, which was a year later at the time. Image resources of the character for those who never watched Power Rangers outside the original and probably never ever seen Lost Galaxy. Although yes, she is one of the best villains in the show, but Trakeena isn't all well known to those who never saw Power Rangers outside of the originals, MMPR, but isn't as iconic as that annoying petty space witch with that annoying screechy witch voice who with the cone boobs who constantly kept getting dumbass headaches for nudging nothing. Aside from that, I have, as seen in the video, pieces of concept art that was shown as intended for my fan film's reimagining of Trakeena, but I bet all of you are wondering, why does my Trakeena have cleavage to her costume? For those who probably have never saw my Trekkie Vira podcast in 2015, I have explained a bit even also in my Bug Boobs episode. Though yeah, I have to admit, I had been out my way trying to make one of our favorite villains from the franchise be like the Elvira of Power Ranger villains. Well, if Elvira has a busty cleavage, why not my version of Trakeena? I understand it sounded at the time was inappropriate and if not derogatory and degrading toward how a woman's body is supposed to look. It's natural. Women have boobs. Men don't. Because, well, you see, the problem is that I know I acted the way, you see, I was like a teenager at the age of 18 when I did this kind of idea, because I understand that the problem is, wait until when I get to certain details about Sentai comparisons with her, and especially in terms of the Sentai comparison with Lost Galaxy later. Sure, I have had issues with women I presented such a puppet of the character like this before in public, but they felt like it was just wrong and inappropriate. The character in the TV show did not have cleavage, sported to her costume. This was just me paying a kinda sort of an homage to Divatox, I guess. if Trakeena was parroting her because, well, why do you think Diva Talks showed her pirate boobies in the Turbo movie? Think about it. Just look at the concept art I have done of her if she in my favorite season was to be reimagined. Sure, I have had incorporated elements to her original design from the TV show, but it ended up making her look like other female villains in film and television with a scantily clad aesthetic bent to them, so they could be something for the male audience to pine over and express their personal fantasies by fantasizing being with that character. Pop culture and fandoms can be weird sometimes to make some female audiences become whatever it is that make them feel, some of them feel uncomfortable, disgusted, and degraded by a male's perspective and a fantasy of seeing a woman in real life that look the way they do, when really in real life they don't technically look this way. Only in fiction. Messed up deviation of fiction or blah. I guess I get the whole understanding of at least women have the common sense not to go out their way to fantasize blah 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 about blah blah what I said like in old videos and stuff or whatever the crap. Again, it's pop culture. It's about escaping the problems from the everyday real world that stresses us all. This fan film at first never existed to many. I have been trying to make it relevant to anyone who is a Power Rangers fan, but everyone turned me down because it seemed like it really wasn't happening. Of course, I have been trying for the most part to make this dream I have been having since 2010 to become a true reality, and not be considered as a fake around those who just didn't seem to care. Such people, what support did I get out of any of this? Nothing! Also, for the women, if any in the audience who have never heard of the character yet have knowledge of other female villains in film and television other than the ones here like Catwoman or Poison Ivy or Mystique or whatever, and those those are popular examples from comic book franchises like Batman and X-Men. Alright, well, I'm cutting the long slurry rambling where I bitched in the original video in favor of substituting what I originally said. What I said back then in my initial video, based on original audio, was condescending. Hence why I was at this point in the original video forward on through saying stuff about my constant rambling about what I planned to do, which I feel wouldn't captivate anyone's interest, considering most of the fans' own nostalgia for the series and ignoring what I planned in mind doing this film and web series. Lost Galaxy is a great Power Ranger series. Again, still is. But I think I was going all my way in my own, with all my power out, trying to please those who like to see me take one of the best and memorable villain characters from that season, this season in particular, and do her over, but it would cause fans to backlash, about the changes I would do against me if I did so, would feel like this isn't her character. I get it. As in this video, long before I had Tara Knowles herself, if I were to imagine her being the character in my current film that completely differs from the original character of Trakeena that we all know and remember, my first near major attempt of fan casting Trakeena was I originally utilized the likeness of former actress and supermodel Jerry Hall for the part, but this was at a point wherein I wanted an older Trakeena rather than the usual younger one that was like in the source material. The daughter of Scorpius, who was in the earlier episodes of the TV show presented as a spoiled, sadistic, manipulative, but power-hungry and cunning brat, who later turned fierce fighter thanks to Villabex and so on, until that very unfortunate team-up episode in Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue, where Trakeena's original character arc ended following her final defeat, thus the Galaxy Rangers retired on Miranoi in case if they were be needed again. I did this video way before the 20th anniversary and Power Rangers Super Mega Force, when I baffled in surprise that Leo, Damon, and Carone was coming back for the legendary battle, and you already knew what happened there. Picking Jerry Hall's likeness 5 years ago was weird, since, well, I was notoriously known back then for having those personal fantasies of mine being with a mature, older, and successful woman. That's about sometimes every young 20-something guy's dream, right? After what I've recently gone through, I don't want a cougar anymore. Not after all I've been through. And at the time of this video's remaster, people didn't understand the twisted fetish I had for older women. They figured it was just a sick fantasy And I said, screw the young chicks around my age back then. But again, since 2015, it is now the other way around. I guess maybe I had no interest in being with girls my own age at the time of this, back then when this video was originally made, age 20 and single. Picking Hall for fan casting the character was weird in hindsight. You see, it's harder to find an actress to look the part nowadays when knowing the character was only a one of a kind and probably at this point not to be recreated. Prior to Hall, my fan casting considerations for Trakeena in a Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film like mine hasn't had any much luck. I had a few people in the comments in the past, in my older videos back in 2013, suggested me to use actresses who are under 30 or ages 30 to 35, and especially suggested me to bring use likenesses of actors that are on the TV show that we know are our fan favorites among the 20 plus seasons of the show. Ones that have played villains or rangers or whatever, but that wouldn't make any sense for the role in the reboot. One random choice by some Resident Evil fan, a suggestion from 2013, suggested me to use actress Julia Voth, Jill Valentine herself. I declined to utilize the likeness of Julia Voth because, personally, I don't see any bare resemblance of her resembling Amy Roll's Trakeena. I have stated that in the later video back in 2014, if I were to do a Marshverse reimagining of, let's say, Power Rangers Time Force, and made a fan film series of that season, I would have imagined Julia Voth as Jen, the Pink Ranger from that season, not to any offense to Aaron Cahill, who, by the by, is one of my favorite Pink Rangers. But I'm a Lost Galaxy guy, so I can't really see it here or there. Past other fan casting considerations were even dubious, since there were even weirder fan casting choices. This was back when I was exhausted and stressed and, dealing with rejection and crap. When I didn't want to use only Amy's likeness of Trakeena from the TV series because most of the actors that have been in Power Rangers are non-union actors and are not part of the Screen Actors Guild or anything, not to mention the TV show is a non-union production, whereas Lionsgate's reboot movie of the franchise is a union production. I wanted likenesses of actresses who I felt personally that could have been her in a possible soon-to-be-made reboot, but knowing Mighty Morphin. Back then, when I did a pre-concept for a fan film reboot in 2011 after Rise of Trakeena was abandoned the following June and then again the following July of 5 years ago, I once initially wanted actress Kate Walsh, who, for any Grey's Anatomy private practice fan out there, if she were the part in a reboot. Yeah, Kate is a great actress and all, but meh. I thought the idea of fan casting her would have made sense since I wanted to, at the point stray away from reimagining any actress then at the point age 50 and over to be this older Trakeena of mine back then. Back then, Kate was in her late 40s, near 50s, so I was a bit close of using her likeness. Then a little later was my considering of a course came Patricia Heaton of Everybody Loves Raymond / The Middle fame. Heaton, like Walsh, was a difficult choice for me. The problem is that the actress is 5'2", whereas the character is 5 foot something or even a 6, and the actress was, before she turns the big 6'0" next year, it was in her mid to late 50s when I did this. Now, bear in mind, for those uneager to understand why I prefer the likenesses of actors from TV shows and movies rather than regular locals from across the world, even my own town of Maryland, who would like to get into acting, was because what I've been doing with these Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan films is that they are not, and even still not, done on a budget nor paying cast and crew members. I'm just doing this because I want to be somewhat known for doing this kind of amateur film and put it out there to the world to see what fan film in the different medium I've also done, and even trying to impress those in this fandom. Another obvious reason why is that not many people in my hometown likes or knows Power Rangers. Most pass it off as stupid kid fodder or dumb kid show fare and blah blah blah. I've been saying this for over 700 videos now on this channel and over the course of these 5 years, and I think it's really tiresome of me to say so. Anyway, Heaton was where I took the fan casting to too much stressful measures, and what do I mean by that? Because at this point, even in the original video, I have been constantly whining and dwelling on this particular obsession that I had with someone I knew and another. If they liked to volunteer doing the voice of the character when I made the puppet of her, but I don't blame her. I guess maybe what I've done was completely degrading and inappropriate, soliciting about how a woman should express her femininity by showing her cleavage while she is this evil woman bent on chaos and destruction or whatever. It's not like the character puppet I created of her has her face, because I never took pictures of this person, like any, face scan so I can slap it and then the boobs and then, insult her in any way. I never did that. I guess maybe this obsession I had came from my own fantasy of seeing all the different female characters, heroes, and villains through all the things in pop culture then and now, especially from everything we may have as a nerdist is keeping interest, whether if it's from a TV show, video game, movie, comic book, etc. Even all of those beautiful nerdy women who do cosplays of some of my favorite fictional female characters from movies, comics, and video games. We all have an obsession, but mine's is no weirder than anyone else's. I guess of the fact when I wanted Trakeena as a villain in a Power Rangers Lost Galaxy fan film back when I initially started. Presenting this kind of puppet of the character was probably what kind of sick and twisted nerd fantasy I was going for, merging elements and homaging to other fictional female characters who appear to be scantily clad and voluptuous, especially the evil types, and pretty much upset those women I went all my way in power with and discussed about it until they backed away from me, because they thought as soon as I was asking any volunteers, they would feel as though when I would say, would you like to play this character? I'm doing a movie, blah, blah, blah. They would be like, whatever the silent expression on their faces would be like. Now, I can see if regarding, again, Power Rangers, if I was making a fan film of Mighty Morphin, like many fans out there, if was done dark, gritty, and mature and adult, or in the same style as the TV show, being goofy, silly, campy, cheesy, corny for kids, etc., etc. And I casted this local female individual as the franchise's most iconic female villain, that being Rita Repulsa. That's if those women who have passing knowledge of Power Rangers, the originals, probably do the part of Rita, but not Trakeena, because no women or girls I know watched Power Rangers back when it was popular and no longer was popular, but didn't want to be relevant again thanks to power of social media nowadays, and never saw any other season pass after the originals. I get it. Not everyone is going to like the same thing or the same character as I do. Okay, there goes my first person viewpoint of bitching again. Back with the if Jerry Hall was Trakeena, my fan film thing. It wasn't so stubble. This was back when I was out of luck finding a better actress likeness to use the likeness, therefore, of. 5 years ago, I have done some research on Jerry Hall prior to the early development of this film. Looking back on her, while she still has the bleach blonde hair color she had back in her heyday as a supermodel in the 1970s and 1980s, looking back on her now, I think she has aged. Maybe it's the wrinkles on her face that makes it right now, or her cringy southern chick trying to sound British act in tone of voice. So looking back on this video, you can tell my fan casting decision of selecting Jerry's likeness was pretty much balls to the wall schizophrenic. This was because of my constant obsession with what ended up did in the original videos, but that's why I deleted them, seeing a villain like Trakeena from Power Rangers. Though I may recall back when I was on a fan site devoted to Amy Miller's Trakeena in 2009 before it was shut down, and the link to the fan site was nowhere on the radar of the internet no more. There was a piece of rare concept art where Trakeena had little armor but a swimsuit with bits of bug armor trying to be akin to Xena Warrior Princess that would later be rejected in favor of the design that would be the official the design of the villain that we come to know, love, and adore. The all covered up with a black formed fitted suit outfit with the appliances of the bug armor. That was because Trakeena's unopposably Sentai counterpart Steerwoman Shalinda, the female villain of the Sentai that Power Rangers Lost Galaxy adapted from, bared any covered ups but all skin and cleavage, no armor. Hence why Trakeena was created for us, and thus she ended up being a fan favorite among us Power Rangers fans. To be honest, I hate Steerwoman Shalinda. Looking back on CG Sentai Gingaman, however, the villains overall were indeed boring and uninteresting, while the Lost Galaxy villains, except Scorpius, Furio, Captain Mutiny, Barber X, and Hexiba, and Mutinies' Peanut Circus Tang Juice Color pirates for foot soldiers are still better. The Sentai in itself is still not great in my mind because I just didn't like the fact it was just blah. Yes, I understand the Sentai was Earth and Nature themed, but Ginga Man was just boring to me. Maybe I'll wait until Shout Factory does a US DVD release sometime in 2018, which will be the Sentai's 20th anniversary year, if the US DVD of Denji Sentai Mega Ranger, aka Power Rangers in Space here, is a success in DVD sale. Over the course of 5 years, I've done so many paper doll prototypes of Trakeena for this fan film, it's not even a laughing matter. There will be some puppets where she looks like her original character. Oftentimes the puppets, later ones for the most part, will get damaged, shafted, scratched, and other ways of ruining the appearance, especially when I'm not even filming her character yet, her makeup scheme on her face. Speaking of her makeup scheme, even my recent one in later years, now utilizing the likeness of actress Maggie Sif in time for Power Rangers Lost Galaxy: The Wrath of Trakeena, would get ruined the most. Black ink smears would get all over her face, legs to the puppet would be loose and lanky and bent around, and when applying her lipstick color, it would get smeared or scratched, while knowing red is the most messiest color when you apply makeup and stuff. Maybe it's because I've been overdoing her makeup scheme and me overdoing her evil bitch makeup scheme, like applying to such of what is lipstick and mascara and whatnot is not going to make her any prettier than she already was. I gotta admit, I'm a sucker for women who wear makeup, and still do. Need to realize that not many women in real life don't like wearing so much makeup on their face in order for them to be the most beautiful girl and woman in the universe. Like Trakeena would say in that Focus episode of hers from the TV series, a personal nostalgic favorite of mine, by the way, where she was jealous of all the pretty girls on Terra Venture being far superior with looks and beauty than she ever was. Reality to that is, beauty doesn't come out of you, it comes from within you. Another reason why I've been obsessed with reviving, rebooting, and reimagining her character for this fan film stuff was because of my own nostalgia with the character and how much of my passing knowledge of how she was missed. When Trakeena's revenge happened in Lightspeed Rescue, I have stated how much I hate the episode, and still do, because of the way it turned out in many videos when discussing what team-ups in Power Rangers I despise. I don't want to use the word hate because it would be too strong of a word to describe something I personally don't like based on my nostalgia I had with it when I was a kid watching Power Rangers back before the Disney era and so on. I already had now long acknowledged why her original actress wasn't around in time for the team up. It was because, not only because of the one-off little kid thing it had to do with Amy undergoing a contract dispute and salary pay slash between her, Danny Slavin, who played Leo the Red Ranger in Lost Galaxy, and Saban, hence why they hired that stand-in actress by having her portray Trakeena so poorly in the Lightspeed Rescue crossover episode. Even still to this day, 17 years later after Lightspeed Rescue, I vehemently hate Trakeena's revenge. Not to mention all the brainless and stupid things that happened in it. Like that old lady telling that little girl there's no such things as monsters is a dumbass plus. I'll give you one positive about it though. I'm glad Trakeena and the Galaxy Rangers did return in it, but the same time though, the negative is that they barely were even in the episode at all. Hence why I decided up to this point, long past 10 years later, came 2010 after Lightspeed, at the time decided to, hate to use the direct of a term nobody likes, reboot Power Rangers Lost Galaxy and start the whole series over in a fan film form, which took me 7 years to do so. I have to say, of all the harp of crap I said in the original back in 2012 and whatever else I said that came off sounding like a psychotic drunk back then, the process of resurrecting Trakeena for anything outside of the TV series continuity has been a staggering, if not hellhole-ish obsession. And looking back on this video, I gotta say, the things I said back in the original didn't sound as though what I initially stated and said because I struggled what to say back then. From all these actress fan castings that went nowhere to actually pulling the character finally off by myself. Even without, I am capable at this point to actually do Trakeena's character by myself without any women to do it, since not many of them know who she is. But if she was aware of the franchise back then, if there was a woman out there back then who was aware of the franchise, even if she's a mother or was just some random whatever, back when it started during the Mighty Morphin days, but didn't care for it in general, she would know who and what the hell is Rita Repulsa, but not a later villainess who has a alien spider puppet for a father that boasts at times about being ruler of the universe years later. Trakeena is a great villain in Power Rangers, but for all the hardships and bad, this was technically something I needed to get off my chest. Once the Wrath of Trakeena is released on my YouTube channel in 2 years' time, I hope you all enjoyed my reimagining of a Power Rangers villain that we all love and all. That took me almost 8 years to the damn point of this decade's time to revive due to the constant rejections and other bullcrap excuses of reasoning from those who didn't want nothing to do with me, the character, or this film. The next villain, however, is another major doozy when I talk about the next Morphin Grid case study, discussing another substantial villain akin to her, also from this series that I'm currently using in one of these movies, Deviant.